What is going on, guys? I'm Wars here, and welcome back again to another video. And today, guys, I got a brand new DBD news video for you guys because we got a bunch of news for Dead by Daylight. Guys, before this video begins, be sure to leave a like on today's video and of course subscribe to the channel if you have not already. It's been a while since I made a video. I've had a couple things happen in my life. I've recently moved to Texas, and of course DBD news was slow for a while, but it just ramped up like crazy. There's been a lot of rumors circulating and a lot of leaks. Of course, I won't be going over the leaks. You can find them online pretty easily on Twitter, Reddit, mostly because I don't want the behavior assassins to come for me. So this was actually included within the leaks. This is purely a rumor. It doesn't have any actual leak information attached, but considering it's coming from someone who's just straight up leaking a bunch of stuff from behavior, which again, I won't be showing because I don't want the behavior ninjas after me, but it says here that there's a rumor that the Dead by Daylight team may have started working on Jason Voorhees, and this was reported from this, I guess, leak, or rumors, I should say. And this tweet that I'm showing on screen says that it may be true because Jason was in Call of Duty and Fortnite in this Halloween season. Of course, not in Dead by Daylight, but in Call of Duty and Fortnite. As a matter of fact, Fortnitemares has actually kind of blown DBD out of the water when it comes to the licensed horror content for the Halloween season. It's kind of insane, really. But yeah, I actually do believe that this rumor might actually be true, because I know that the second that behavior can get their hands on Jason, they're gonna add him. I mean, we already know that as much. And the fact that Jason is already appearing in games like Fortnite and Call of Duty, I can definitely see them instantly going with behavior. The only thing I can see stopping that from happen is that there is a Jason game being worked on right now, and I don't know if the devs want two slasher games, because it's kind of different when it's a shooter game like Fortnite or Call of Duty, but when it's a straight up like slasher game, that's a bit different. So again, I don't know, but I'm leaning on the possibility that maybe this is true, and we might be seeing Jason in the future. And this is just purely based on my opinion, based on what I've seen from Fortnite and Call of Duty, not even from the leaks. So yeah, I might go over some more information that's with this leak post stuff, but I really don't want to cover anything that behavior doesn't want spread. But it's pretty much common knowledge now within the DBD community. I just hate when these leaks happen and then everyone just has to pretend like we don't know what it is anymore, even though it's just everywhere. So hopefully behavior can get, the leaks actually cracked down on, because again, I'm going to say it again, I just said it, but it's annoying that I keep seeing leaks spread throughout the entirety of the DBD community on Reddit and Twitter, and then when it comes to YouTube or just talking about it, you just have to pretend like it doesn't exist, because then behavior would get mad even though the leaks are just already out there. So again, I just wanted to say that because it is frustrating for someone who likes to speculate, but it's unable to speculate because things get leaked, and then when things get leaked, I can't even talk about said things that are getting leaked because it's already too late. So just wanted to share my frustration with that, because it is low-key kind of annoying. So the rest of the news actually comes from an interview with the King. There's actually a lot of crucial information in this interview, including information related to the upcoming chapter, which I think Danganronpa has straight up just been deconfirmed. It's not outright said, but I think it's implied. So let's get right to this. So Elvira cannot come into Dead by Daylight. Dead by Daylight game director said that he was talking to a man who represents her, and this man said that Elvira can't be in any media that it has her sacrificed or hurt in any cruel way. She is in the game Killer Clowns from Outer Space because it is a purely comedic death. So this means that Elvira can't come into Dead by Daylight because she would just be, graphically killed, and I guess she doesn't want to be represented that way, which is perfectly understandable. I'm not familiar with the Elvira license. I know that a lot of people really want it to come into the game. I'm not familiar with it myself, but again, it's a shame that, any horror license can't come into Dead by Daylight in any way or form. And I still think this could work. A lot of people were saying it would be cool if she could be included in some comedic way. Like, instead of being murdered in some way, she just like disappears, or something silly exclusive to just her. I don't think behavior would do that, because I don't want to bash on the behavior devs too much, but they can be quite lazy sometimes. Not all the time, sometimes they lock in, but my frustrations aside, they kind of don't do extra stuff like that just for one license, which is unfortunate. But if you couldn't tell, I'm a little frustrated with DBD at the moment. When asked about the January chapter, game director Matthew Cote said, "I will say the content is based upon is content that I have consumed with great pleasure and with an avid passion." He said this during a recent interview with The King, and sadly that was the only information we have on the next chapter. So this is literally all we know about the January chapter other than its license, and it's going to have 2 survivors and 1 killer. Now, I don't think it's Danganronpa. It's possible that Matthew Cote is a huge Danganronpa fan, we just don't know that. But I don't know if, that is the case. We know that Matthew Cote is a huge fan of D&D, so I saw some people saying maybe this is a D&D Part 2 chapter, and maybe even, in my hopes and dreams, a Baldur's Gate chapter. I would love that. That's just, pure speculation though. But I'm going to write Danganronpa out. Again, I don't know how much of a fan of Danganronpa Matthew Cote is. We definitely know he is a fan of Resident Evil though, so this means that Resident Evil is still on the table, I would imagine. So yeah, I still think the most likely theories now are either D&D Part 2, perhaps Baldur's Gate, hopefully, and Resident Evil, which I think we all know it's probably going to be Resident Evil. I heard some people saying it was going to be Predator, and even maybe possibly some information from the leaks that alluded to that being Predator, which would be interesting. I don't know how I feel about Predator as a chapter, so I still think that the 3 most likely, not just 2, 3 most likely are Resident Evil, Predator, and I think the least likely out of all them, D&D Part 2, which I would personally love. I just want Baldur's Gate and Dead by Daylight. I didn't go to PAX East myself, but I actually had a friend who did go and asked Matthew Cote about adding Baldur's Gate into Dead by Daylight, and he said out of everyone, he would like to add Karlach, which I think is amazing because I'm a huge Karlach fan myself. But the fact that, there is an interest in Baldur's Gate in general into DVD is just huge, so I don't know. I'm going to keep my copium on a D&D Part 2 chapter, but I still think Resident Evil is probably the most likely, now that Danganronpa is probably not going to. So we actually have some news related to Scott Cawthon in Dead by Daylight. He said that there are other games that will throw a lot of money at you to be in their game, but no, just go on to Dead by Daylight. He praised the work with behavior and said, if you want your property treated right, you go with behavior, you go to Dead by Daylight. So this is Scott literally talking to, I guess, other license holders, saying that if you want your property treated right, to go with behavior, because I guess Scott is really proud of how they handled FNAF in Dead by Daylight, which makes me extremely happy to see this. There were rumors in, the leaks that were going around saying that FNAF was the hardest license to work with, which I can believe, but I think the payoff is going to be, really worth it, because if you think about it, FNAF is literally just one guy. It's not like a company, it's not like several license holders. It comes down to if Scott likes it or if he doesn't. So if there's something that behavior wants to do and he likes it, it can happen. It's just if behavior is willing to do it. And if there's something that, they want and Scott doesn't, then there's no way, because Scott is the only person that can decide if it's appropriate or not for Dead by Daylight. So I think it's a double-edged sword, because while I do think that, Scott can be more controlling of the property compared to some other license holders, I think it's a good thing too, because that means that there could be a more personal relationship between behavior and Scott that you really won't see with many other licenses. So I think this is really good news, and I think the fact that we're seeing things like the Blight Springtrap, which was probably decided a long time ago, I think we might be seeing more FNAF on the way. And yeah, there's even some things later on in this video I'll go to that might allude to there being a second FNAF chapter, which I'll get to in just a second. Alright, and this was the tweet I was referring to. This can literally mean anything though, but I do think it might be referencing FNAF or even Resident Evil, because it says Resident Evil directly in this question. It says, why don't we see more collaborations with repeat licensors like Resident Evil Project W? And Matthew Cote's response was, stay tuned, I don't have a better answer than that. So I think this does just, outright pretty much confirm that we are getting another sequel chapter at some point down the road, whether that be in January or just in the future. We are getting a part 2 chapter. We know that they're very interested in doing a part 2 to FNAF, and that being with the Mimic, but we don't know anything, any other chapter besides that. we do think that there might be, you know, more Resident Evil chapters based on the fact that it's one of the most successful licenses besides FNAF in the game, and it seems like FNAF, Behavior has a really good relationship with the Resident Evil license holder. But I think this is definitely referring to either RE directly or FNAF, so I think it's one of the two. Maybe I'm surprised, and like I said earlier, it might be that D&D Part 2 chapter, I don't know, but either way, it's cool to see that we most likely are going to be getting more sequel chapters. I just don't want anything past 3 chapters. Like, I really don't want an RE Part 3 chapter. I feel like 2 chapters per license is more than enough, and I feel like even then, that should be like reserved for like the top of the top. So, I don't know if I want a Part 3 chapter for Resident Evil or any other chapter, even FNAF. I would like it to stay with 2 chapters at most. So hopefully Project W is the last Resident Evil chapter and we get a part 2 to something else like FNAF or D&D or anything really. Alright, we're going to end this on a fun one here. This is actually something that I, was really excited to hear because this is such a niche question for a license that I feel like not many people talk about coming to Dead by Daylight that I'm a huge fan of. And I know a mutual of mine on Twitter is also very excited about this idea. And the question is anyone on the team, including yourself, a fan of Doctor Who? Would you consider adding Doctor like David Tennant's version as a survivor? And the response was, I've watched a lot of Doctor Who in my life. I started watching Doctor Who on VHS with a friend of mine, brother, who had the whole series, like way before the reboots. So yeah, I'm an old school Doctor Who fan. That's the part of the question I can answer. So, personally, I'm not a huge fan of the pre-reboot Doctor Who, so I don't really care that much. I watched the Doctor Who movie, but, I just would love to see any Doctor Who in Dead by Daylight. I think it is a fun license. It would be really cool to have the Doctor as a survivor, and I just think it would be really awesome. I really don't have anything else to say other than that, but it's cool to see that we didn't get like an outright no or anything on Doctor Who and Dead by Daylight, because sometimes we do get outright no's or, it's already been decided it's not happening, but with Doctor Who, it seems like it is an open-ended, answer that it could happen, and he won't answer anything more than that, so yeah, I'm excited about that, and that's pretty much it. Like I said, there is a lot more news out there. I just don't know if I want to cover everything quite yet, because a lot of it is leaks and information I really cannot cover, because it is, not meant to be public. So, don't know about that, but we will see. Again, I'm just kind of tired of these leaks coming out over and over and over again, and then we all just have to kind of pretend like we don't see it, and not talk about it, even though it's like literally right in front of our faces. I feel like it's like Don't Look Up, that movie where it's like you see something, but you're just pretending like it's not there. Like it's not there. Point is, if you go on Twitter, you will see the leaks if you are even the slightest bit active in the DBD community. That is all I will say. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like. New to my channel, subscribe. I'll see you next video. Have a great day, and as always, peace out. Bye, guys.